Hi guys, today we're going to talk about something pretty interesting, pretty unique, at least I hope you think it's unique. This is going to be a video that could be 5 minutes long or it could be 5 hours long, so strap yourselves in. What I'm going to talk about today are basically 6 portables that you should own, okay? If you are a video game fan, collector, whatever you want to call yourself, these are 6 particular platforms that, as far as I'm concerned, are must-haves, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain a little bit about the particular platform itself, and then talk a little bit about the game, some of my memories, and things like that, okay? So, you may disagree with me. You might think, Jared, you're woo, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, and that's alright. This is just my opinion of 6 dedicated portable systems that I think you should own if you consider yourself a video game fan. Now, hopefully I might even introduce you to a platform with this particular video, but we'll see. Okay, so we're going to start off with the most successful portable gaming company. Let's start with that. And that would be Nintendo. So the very first platform I recommend to people is this little guy right here. We can open this up. Dun, dun, dun. One of the very best platforms ever released is the Game Boy Advance SP. This is not a review. I'm not going to go over, like, you know, what makes this fancy and what have you. But this particular unit, now keep in mind, this particular unit, it is the AGS 101, the one with the backlight. This is the one that I recommend everybody purchase. This is an amazing game. Amazing game. It's an amazing platform that plays 3 generations of video games. So you get the original Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance. And it's all wrapped up in this tiny little clamshell that easily fits in your pocket, easily goes anywhere. The battery lasts for like maybe 30 hours, and it lasts for decades. So this one, really, truly, this is, if you're going to go for a Game Boy, this is the one you want to go for. Now, just to go back a bit, because I'm going to do a little bit of history with myself with these particular platforms. So the original Game Boy, the games came in boxes like this. I don't have many Game Boy games here at the time of this recording, so this was one that I actually just picked up rather recently. This is the infamous case. They would keep these cases for the entire line of Game Boy. There would be Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance. So this is what they look like. These were the original cases. I've got lots of memories with these. Some of the very first games I picked up was Super Mario Land. After that, oh man, I can't even think. I've got the Castlevania Adventure, whatever it was called. Mega Man games, I've got those. Those were some of the very, very first Game Boy games in these original little boxes. For those that don't know, Game Boy games originally shipped in things like this, and you would just open up this little clamshell, and here is an example of an original Game Boy game. Today a lot of people refer to this as Game Boy Gray. I don't know why. Probably because the carts are gray. So yeah, this is Metroid 2, The Return of Samus. I've got a lot of Game Boy games. I've amassed quite a collection over the years. But back then, I wasn't a huge portable gamer. I thought it was cool, but I just didn't, I don't know, it didn't connect, it didn't resonate with me quite as much as like my NES. My NES, that was the, yeah, baby! And you gotta remember that this bad boy came out, not this game, but the original Game Boy. The original Game Boy came out in like 1989. So that's a long, long time ago. So after the original Game Boy, I think the crowning achievement, for my memories anyway, Metroid 2 was definitely one of them. This is an amazing game, especially compared to the first one. They made a lot of improvements, which is impressive when you think that the Game Boy is actually weaker than the NES. And it was around the time that Metroid 2 came out where I was like, okay, like this is interesting. You see, up to that point, games were really basic, like really basic. But around that time, it started to really look like NES games. Like, play Metroid 2, you will be really surprised by how good that looks in relation to the original NES adventure. So anyways, after that, we had the Game Boy Color, and the games came like this. You can see they've got the thing that differentiated them, saying Game Boy Color. And the games themselves, I put them all in little boxes like that as for protection, but I believe they stopped doing that during the Game Boy Color time. I don't know how well this is going to come up on the camera here, but I'm going to come very close to you guys. So, you'll notice that this one it indents in, and this one it's basically popped out, the plastic. That's basically what separates these two games. Game Boy Color games are not typically on gray cartridges. In fact, I don't think they're at all on gray cartridges. I think they're all in translucent cases or other cases like that. Game Boy Color was very close to the NES in terms of power. That's what I like to tell people. And my memories for that were, oh, okay, cool. Link's Awakening, which was just a breathtaking game on the Game Boy, period, the Game Boy. They had like a DX version, or a deluxe version that was released on the Game Boy Color, and I think it was at launch too, which is why I bought the system right away. I was like, oh man, oh man! And I don't remember Game Boy Color lasting long. Maybe it's just me. But when I look through like my games, and not here, most of them are in storage, I'm like, yeah, you know, I don't really have that many Game Boy Color games. There's some really good ones. I did, what was it? Wendy Every Which Way. There's Shantae, I forget how it's pronounced. Metal Gear Solid, which I'm going to be reviewing. That's a fantastic game. And others like that. So I definitely enjoyed the portable, but for whatever reason, like thinking back now, I have very limited memories with the Game Boy Color line. Anyways, it seems to me that they just jumped to this right here, which is the Game Boy Advance. So you can see, so you'll see that, you know, throughout the entire history of this platform, they've kept this same like design, same box size, same everything. I thought that was really, really cool of them to do that. That was really unique. And for Game Boy Advance, the games finally changed. We had small little cartridges like this, so they were significantly different than the Game Boy and Game Boy Color games. And I want to show you, going back to this Game Boy Advance SP, it will play all your games. They just stick out a little bit. So you see? You get this little flap thing here for Game Boy and Game Boy Color games, whereas with Game Boy Advance games, it's flush. They just go through. So this is a portable that I had to start with because it has the largest library of games. This is basically my go-to Game Boy. This is the only one you need. That's what's so awesome about this, is that you can play 3 generations of games, hundreds and hundreds, probably even thousands of games on this one little device. And if you get the AGS 101 model, then you have a backlight, which is awesome because it basically looks like the 3DS screen. It's that bright, crisp, visuals are amazing. So definitely one portable system that I highly, highly recommend for anyone that's looking into trying some portable games. That is one. So we have 5 more to go. I told you this video could be a long one. Where am I going to put all this stuff? Okay. So after the Game Boy line, Nintendo moved on to the DS, and they finally moved to plastic cases, which were great because they last longer. You don't have to worry about, you know, cardboard getting smooshed. And if I open it up, this was pretty cool. They had a place up here for a Game Boy Advance game, and then they had your DS game. And the reason why they did that is because the original DS actually played Game Boy Advance games, which was pretty darn cool. But like I say, would I recommend a 3DS? A DS? No, I wouldn't. I would not recommend someone go out and purchase a DS. What I would recommend people do is go get this bad boy right there. This is Nintendo's new 3DS. Why I would recommend this one over the 3DS or the DS, DS Lite, DSi, DS is because this bad boy right here plays all the games. So if you have these two platforms, the SP and the new 3DS, you can play every single portable game Nintendo has ever made. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why I recommend for my number 2 system that I'm recommending here, and these aren't in any order, it's just what I'm recommending. I would definitely recommend a new 3DS because it allows you to play everything from these original DS games like Dragon Quest IX here, all the way up and to and including 3DS games. This is Resident Evil Revelations, and you'll notice that the carts look virtually identical. The only difference is there's a little flap there in the color of this. That's it. Sorry about that. I had a phone call. So, like I was saying, I would recommend a new 3DS. I mean, they're just awesome. The games came in little boxes like this, very similar to the other ones, except these are much more flimsy. And they did that, I think, for environmental reasons, things like that. But same overall size, which is nice, just a little bit thinner, as you can see. But yeah, so for my second platform, really, I would really recommend the new 3DS. And the DS line is where things get very interesting for me in terms of my history with portables. Because I had a little bit of a falling out with Nintendo for a long time. I found they were just retreading the same beats, basically, over and over and over again. And the DS, which was awesome, by the way, I have a lot of DS games. I don't know what it was, but the DS PSP generation, wow, man, there are some crazy portable games. But it didn't impact me as much as the Game Boy Advance. The Game Boy Advance, for that whole line, I think personally, is probably my favorite. Because it was like having a Super Nintendo on the go. And I wish it lasted longer. See, the original plan Nintendo had done was, well, their original plan was to have what they called the 3 pillars. So they wanted to have their console, they wanted to have the Game Boy Advance, and they wanted to have the DS, and that did not work. Everyone just jumped ship right away to the DS, and that was like the Game Boy Advance was left in the dust, which is such a shame because it's such a damn good system. But the DS, it did grow on me. I wasn't really feeling all the touch controls and stuff like that when it originally was released. But like I say, it really did grow on me, and today it's just an amazing platform. The 3DS is a phenomenal system. It has so many good games. So 3DS definitely is there, man. Like this, if you have this and you have, let's open that bad boy up again, these two platforms, you could be good forever. I mean forever. But where would we be in this video? It wouldn't really be going anywhere. So I want to talk about another platform, and it's another platform that I do really recommend people purchase, and it was a competitor to Nintendo. And it's a new competitor to Nintendo. See, originally there were a lot of people that tried to make portable systems, and it just never worked out to compared to Nintendo. Nintendo just like destroyed people. But this competitor wasn't a competitor like any other. This was a competitor that essentially destroyed Sega, and they were really like, okay, we can take over the portable landscape. And you know what? I still say I think they could have had Nintendo just not struck gold with the 3DS. Excuse me, with the DS. This competitor, obviously, I'm talking about is Sony. Sony really changed the landscape of consoles, and they were trying to do the same thing with portable. So they created this device right here the PSP, or the PlayStation Portable. This particular model is the PSP 3000, and the reason why I'm showing this one is because it has a component video out that is how I'm capturing footage for my various reviews that you're going to be seeing. And the PSP was a really unique platform because unlike all the other devices, the games came on little cases like this, like micro DVD cases, same thing though, plastic cases. You open them up and you got something sort of like that. So right there you should see what the big difference is. So the big difference, obviously, right away you can tell, is games come on these little discs. And I always have to look it up. It's the Universal Media Disc. These were very, very interesting for their time. You see, Sony even put movies on these damn things so that you could watch like on the PSP while you were, you know, on the train, on the bus, on wherever you were happened to be. And I don't know, it was never for me, the movie aspect. I never got that because we were already at a time where I could see that these were going to go digital download for sure. And so I never got that element, but it was Sony. Sony was always trying to go into that direction of multimedia, multimedia, multimedia. And what's so incredible about this device, and this was the first time I had ever experienced this device today is not the same device as the first generation PlayStation Portable. What people forget is that there wasn't even a web browser on the original PSP. It didn't have a PlayStation Store. It didn't do all of these sorts of things. There may have been a web browser, but there was no store, there was none of that. That all slowly came through firmware updates. So whenever I think of firmware updates and I think of potentials of systems, this is the one. This will forever stay in my gaming memory because this is the first time I had ever experienced anything like that, where the platform, this device I'm holding in my hands today in 2016, isn't at all like the device I originally purchased at midnight when it originally launched, and not this particular model, but the original PSP. And that blew my mind. Like, it totally blew my mind. It still blows my mind to think. And today it's a common occurrence. You know, we had it with the PlayStation 3, with the Xbox 360, and now, of course, with this current generation. And Nintendo did the same thing with the DS, but to a much lesser degree. Like, there were updates that they had available. And even with the 3DS, they're pushing out updates, but again, much lesser degree than what Sony did with the PSP. It really blew my mind. I'm going to have more stories related to the PSP only because they were a newcomer, they were a challenger. And I saw both the 3DS and the PSP side by side day one, and I said the PSP is going to destroy Nintendo because it was just light years ahead in terms of the graphic fidelity and all of this. But I was proven wrong because gameplay is what counts. And Nintendo pumped out so many awesome DS games that it was just unbelievable. But what people tend to forget is that PSP wasn't a failure, not at all. It ended up selling over 80 million units, for goodness sakes. That's like the PlayStation 3 success level. But I want to go back to these UMDs, these little discs. These are based off of Sony's mini disc technology, which was a failed technology. But this was actually quite successful, and to this day, it's a real shame that the PSP had a really big drop-off towards the end of its life cycle in North America. And that's really, really unfortunate because there's a lot of games that were not released on UMD that were pushed onto the PlayStation Store, and some games didn't even come to North America. What is it, Final Fantasy Type 0 or whatever is a famous case from Square Enix. And it's a real shame because it was a very successful platform, and I have a lot of great memories. I mean, where else could you get? Here, this is the Persona series. On the go. That's awesome, you know? They remastered so many games. It was unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I really liked everything about this. It was a really, really amazing platform, and I really recommend people purchase this one. And I stand by that. Even today, I think it's really worthwhile. Except the thing is, now I'm starting to see where the digital downloads, the scary part is. Because the PlayStation Store is no longer accessible from this device. And because of that, how do you get your digital downloads onto this device? Now, there are workarounds. You can connect it to your PlayStation 3. I think you can still connect it to a computer, but I'm not sure. If you can't connect it to a computer, then that sucks, because it means you have to have a PS3. And what happens when they cut the PS3? How do you get your digital downloads on this? So that's the sorts of things that, with a UMD, you don't have that problem, right? You just put the mini disc in, and away you go. And anyways, that was a really awesome time. For portable gaming, that was an amazing time. Having the PSP and the DS go head to head. And when you look at it, the DS sold like 150 million units. The PSP sold 80 million units. Wowzers, guys, do the math. Over 200 million people are playing these things, you know? Like, at one point. That's sick. Absolutely sick. And I didn't mention this before, but like during all of these different iterations of consoles, there was a lot, like the original Game Boy Advance was not this. This was the Game Boy Advance SP. And I was enthralled by all these things. Every new little gadget, I was like, ooh! The only one that I did not do that to was the PSP, believe it or not. I purchased the original PSP, and then the PSP 3000 was given to me by Steven's friend, actually, when he moved out. Well, I moved away because I wanted to capture footage, so he gave me the PSP 3000. It's weird that, eh? And same with the PlayStation Vita, Sony's follow-up to the PlayStation Portable. There has been a revision or revised version, and I have had no intention of purchasing it. Whereas with Nintendo, I've purchased every single one of their platforms they've ever made, period. And that's not because of a fanboyism or anything like that. It's just that there was always like, oh, cool, there's some extra thing, or it looks nicer, or it's got better battery, or a brighter screen, or whatever. But with Sony, I always felt that they were removing features. Like, for example, on this PSP, if I want to open it up, it's just like a flip thing here that you do with your fingernail to open it up. Whereas with the original, it was a flap that you like a button that you'd press, and it would open up the back case. So that, like, I don't know, I just found that with Sony, whenever they did hardware revisions, they would remove things, which I never really liked. So we've covered 3 portables right now. We're halfway done, and I'm gonna put some advisories out, so don't worry. The next platform, truly, these are 4 platforms that I think you really should own. I really, really do. The last 2 that I'm going to mention I'm going to talk about them in the sense that I don't think they're must-haves necessarily, but they're still excellent platforms. Okay? But these 4 you really need to own. So the next one is from another competitor to Nintendo. I'm not going to get into the history of it, but I was a big fan of this company, and I still am a big fan of this company. And this company has just come back, actually, in the last week or 2. They were called SNK. SNK was just a fantastic video game developer that made amazing fighting games, just fantastic, the Metal Slug series, and they made killer hardware. They really did. It was built to last forever. And their home platform was ridiculously expensive. But when I found out that they were coming out with a portable, I was like, oh yeah! I was so happy. And well, here it is. This is the Geo Pocket Color. There was a black and white version. This is a color version. There was a black and white version that was released. I don't believe it was ever released in North America. It was only released in Japan. It just takes 2 batteries. That was one of the problems with one of Nintendo's competitors. And it even has a battery, cell battery to save your date and things like that. Now, what makes this one so unique is the fact, well, it has 2 buttons. Woo! And it has a power button and an options button over here. It's not that, it's this. Micro switches! This portable had the best fighting games ever on it for a portable. you got to remember that we're going back here to around the Game Boy Color time. It was around that when this was released. And you weren't supposed to be able to have a 2-button fighter. Pff, please, like, no way that's going to be good. Yeah? Like hell. Awesome. This little joystick here is awesome. Absolutely awesome. I have been using this thing for the last, let's see if there's a year on here. I doubt it. Yeah, I don't see anything. Damn it. But anyways, oh, let me tangent off here just for a second. SNK is back, baby. Yeah! They've left the pachinko business. They're now jumping headfirst back into video game development. King of Fighters 14 comes out, what is it, September I think it is? Like 50 playable characters, all kinds of gameplay modes, everything. And the company has changed their name from SNK Playmore, which originally after this, actually, after this, SNK would eventually go bankrupt, and their assets were purchased by a company called Playmore, and then they combined to become SNK Playmore. But recently, as in a couple of weeks ago, or maybe even days ago, SNK Playmore announced they're dropping the Playmore name and they're going back to SNK. And they're even getting their original tagline back, which is "The future is now." And so they've got the King of Fighters 14 coming out, and they also have a new Samurai Showdown. Woo! I can't believe this. It's crazy. And what boggles my mind is that Konami is going into that business. It doesn't make sense. It's like Konami and SNK just swap places. Anyway, whatever the case may be. So this portable system does not get enough praise. This is a brilliant portable system. It really is. It's one of the best out there. I recommend it just as much as I recommend the Game Boy Advance SP, the new 3DS, and the PlayStation Portable. There's only one problem with it. It does not have a backlight. That sucks. So unfortunately, you got to play it with a light or outside or something like that. There are lots of people in the modding community that can mod one for you and put in a backlight. I don't know why I've never done that. I just never did that. So anyways, let's talk a little bit about the games and stuff like that. So here's a typical thing, very similar to the Game Boy line, although you'll see it's a little bit thinner. And it's actually a little bit smaller. If I were to put these like that, you can still see the outline of this particular box. So that's that. The game's opened like this. Then you have your instructions and your little case there with the game. So let's just show you one here. So you just open it up, and then you've got your little cartridge. And like I said, fighters are amazing on this thing. And this one right here is the match of the millennium. SNK versus Capcom. This is one of the best games on the platform. Highly recommend that. Well worth purchasing. I'm not kidding. It's freaking awesome. But there's something else that really makes this portable unique, and that is the fact that it actually has, I don't know if you'll be able to see this. You see that? That's right. Sonic the Hedgehog Pocket Adventure. This was a big deal because at this particular point in time, this was 1990, what, 9? I think it's 1999 when this was released. Sega was still making hardware. They were not a third-party developer. And being able to play a Sonic game, and a damn good Sonic game, on another device was really weird, but awesome. And so I've got a lot of memories with this. I spent a lot of time with this bad boy. You could even connect this to the Dreamcast, believe it or not, and use that game, Match of the Millennium, in order to unlock different goodies on Capcom versus SNK and other things like that. It's awesome to me that SNK is coming back, and I'm so happy about this. It's awesome. King of Fighters 15 actually looks graphically like, ooh, it doesn't look that great, but the gameplay I'm sure is going to be awesome. And I really hope that the company can make some money on this and keep going, and it's great to just have these guys back. So anyways, Really recommend this one. This is a fantastic portable. Can be a little bit hard to find today. That's the only problem. Same with the AGS 101, by the way. This bad boy can be very, very expensive. I have a video up showing how you can easily tell the difference between the regular version and the AGS 101, so be sure to check that out. The PSP is still really affordable, actually, and games for the PSP, buy them now, because same as the DS, buy them now before they get to this level of insanity where every game is like $100 or more. So just buy what you want right now for those particular platforms. For the Neo Geo Pocket Color, you can get the individual games like this really fairly common. They're still, some are quite expensive. Getting complete in-box stuff is much more challenging, and it's going to be a lot more costly. So, well, go ahead if you want. Okay, so the next platform is another modern day platform that I recommend, but it doesn't come with the glowing recommendation that the other ones all come with. So those four are really like the must-haves. You've got to have them. If you don't have them, you're crazy. No, but really, they're ones that they deserve your attention. Now, the next one is Sony's newest platform, which is the PlayStation Vita. Okay, this deserves your attention too. It really does. It has some amazing freaking games on this little guy. The reason why it doesn't have as high of a glowing recommendation is because Sony ditched the platform like 8 months after they released it. It sold about 13 million units and pretty much is not getting very much support whatsoever, except for in the digital space through indie developers, and it gets a lot of ports of indie games from, say, PlayStation 4 to the PlayStation Vita. That being said, I still wanted it on this list. I wanted it in this video because there are some great games on here. There you've got your Guacamelee, your Severed, you've got Mutant Blobs Attack. Then you've got physical releases like Persona 4 Golden here. Games came in these little cases, much smaller than these guys, even thinner than the PSP brethren. And games were on these little carts, like flash carts, sort of like DS games. Really small little things. And that's that. It's this is a really good platform. It's just a shame, like you'll notice, no instruction manuals anymore. This is just the way it, unfortunately, it goes today. But what killed the Vita was really, well, a lot of factors. I actually just did a video on that shortly, a little while ago. But basically, there's really expensive memory cards on it that really hurt. They're super expensive even today. It's a proprietary memory card they made just for the Vita, which was silly. I don't know why the hell they did that for piracy. Who cares? Like, this is ridiculous. But anyways, the reason why I say I can't give it the highest recommendation overall is simply because the library isn't as robust as some of these other platforms. That being said, the Neo Geo Pocket Color also doesn't have a huge, robust library of games, but the games that are on there are just incredible. But with the Vita, there's enough that it's well worth a purchase. I would suggest, if you're looking into it now, it's an obsolete platform according to Sony. So I would suggest maybe waiting a bit until you can bargain bin every game that's available for it. There are still games being manufactured for this device, but just not anywhere near the same level as for the 3DS. But it's still an awesome platform, and when it originally came out, it shipped with Uncharted Golden Abyss, and I thought that was amazing, man. And from the 3DS to the Vita, again, I was like, wow, the Vita is freaking awesome. But this time I said, no, I'm not saying who's going to win or anything like that, but it did blow my mind. But in terms of the caliber of games, the 3DS is just, I mean, it has A Link Between Worlds, enough said. And Fire Emblem and everything else. But the Vita definitely is a very good quality platform that I do recommend, absolutely recommend, which is why I wanted to do this video of six dedicated portables that I really think are worth your time. If you're really a hardcore gamer, these are all great. So we got one more. And this one I only recommend under one condition. And first, I guess I'll show you what it is. It is the Game Gear. I can only recommend this with one major thing here. Change the screen. This screen is not the original screen. I'll do a video in the future talking about this particular modification, but this has an LCD screen and with a pure RGB signal going to it, and it's completely backlit. If you get the original CRT version, oh boy, I couldn't recommend it because you'll never be able to play it. The colors are just awful. You can barely see anything. With this one though, wow, it looks like, it essentially has like a Game Boy Advance SP screen, like the AGS 101 model. It is beautiful, absolutely beautiful. This model also, you'll notice up there, is VGA out, so I can capture footage for you guys, which is just awesome. It's basically a modification that I would like to do to this little guy right there. Well, not that I would like to do, that I'd like to get someone to do. The thing is that this portable is well worth it regardless. Even if you just have this standard base model, it is still worth purchasing. Whereas with the Game Gear, I can't recommend that because the odds of you finding a Game Gear that work with the original screen, good luck. Also, make sure you get an AC adapter for it. I don't remember which model it is. I think it's a Genesis 2 model, something like that will work. It's the exact same power adapter. Because this bad boy requires 6, 3 here, 3 here, AA batteries. And the modification is not going to help much with that. So it still takes a ridiculous amount of power. Now, the story with that is that was the original competitor to the Game Boy. And I know there's Ataris, I know there's Wonder Swans, I know there's all kinds of other platforms. But these are ones that I feel you should own. Like, these are really good quality platforms with enough games, good libraries that are well worth it. Anyways, the original Game Gear was one as a kid that just blew my mind. I mean, it was in color, there was TV attachments, there was all this nonsense. And it was amazing. It was absolutely freaking amazing. I don't have any boxed games here to show you, but inside the box there were little things like this, little plastic that you'd open up, whoop whoop, very similar to Game Boy and your little game. Just there like that. This is Streets of Rage 2. And the reason why I recommend the Game Gear is because there were a wide assortment of games that were released on it that were just amazing. Absolutely amazing. Everything from, like, it even had its own freaking Shining Force game that was crazy. There was all kinds of different things that were released on it, and if you're a fan of Sega and all their franchises, from Echo the Dolphin to Sonic to Streets of Rage Columns, you name it, man, there were games on the Game Gear. So it's certainly worth it, but again, that's the one where it's worth it specifically if you get that particular modification. If you don't get that mod, it's a lot harder to recommend, in particular because of that screen. Now, the other thing I want to mention with all of these portables is that they're all region free with the exception of the 3DS. That's pretty much it. All the rest of them, you can purchase games from elsewhere and they will work, which is just awesome. And it sucks that Nintendo did that, started doing that with the DS line, and they continue all the way up till today, which is really, really unfortunate because a portable, like, if I go to China, why the hell can't I purchase a Chinese game and plop it in my Geo Pocket Color? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense. I should be able to do that. It's a portable! And you can for all these other platforms with the exception of this new 3DS. So anyways, guys, that was just, I hope you enjoyed that trip down memory lane sort of deal, and just talking about 6 dedicated portables that I think are well worth your time, effort, and money. So what about you guys? What are some of your favorite portable gaming memories? Which portables would you really recommend? And of what you guys have just seen, what are some reviews you'd like to see me cover here on the channel? And I'll see what I can do. Alright guys, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video.